Welcome to the Aesthetic Talk, the premier podcast for aesthetic professionals around the world. I'm your host, Jonathan McLean. I'm the proud founder of elite aesthetic healthcare recruiting firm, McLean Aesthetics, connecting the best talent with leading med spas, dermatology, and plastic surgery offices nationwide. On this show, you'll hear from industry experts, medical professionals, and CEOs as they share their journey, provide insight on the latest trends, and offer invaluable advice. To ensure you don't miss out on any of the latest conversation with our experts, subscribe on YouTube and all your favorite podcast platforms.
The Aesthetic Talk Podcast.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Jonathan McLean, and welcome back to the Aesthetic Talk. Today we have two special guests based out of Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm excited to speak to them because you get the whole dynamic today. You get the CEO side, you get the aesthetic injector side, you get the operations side, a little bit of everything. So please help me to introduce Dr. Carla and the CEO of Smiley Aesthetics, Mary.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. And we sound so much alike, so I'm not sure if anyone will be able to tell who's speaking, but that's okay. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So when I ask you questions, I'll direct them to you. So then we can get like the exact.
Okay,
Perfect.
that sounds good.
We're identical twins if you didn't pick that up.
Oh, nice. How is that dynamic growing up? I'm interested to know about that.
Do you have a whole nother podcast to talk about, or should we
Stay on topic.
should we dive into that? No, we are extremely close. We're best friends. Our families are growing up together. Our husbands are very good friends. Kids are close in age. And we've been that way our whole life. So it's, we always like to say we don't promote people going into business together, but at the same time, it's worked very well for us.
It's family, yeah.
Yeah, we do think, it's family. We do think we have an edge being identical twin sisters. There's not a thing in the world that could come between us, but it does help having two identical brains working on the same thing. So it's been great.
Nice. We're going to get more into that. And I'm glad you guys started a little bit off subject, because I do want to go back and kind of see, how did you guys get into this space? There's so many spaces in healthcare in general, right? There's dermatology, there's neurosurgery, like there's so many spaces. What made you guys pick aesthetics in the roles that you guys are currently doing?
Yeah, so I'll start. It's Carla. So my background is in nursing leadership and hospital operations. And that's what I got my doctorate in, is in leadership and systems and operations. And so I was working for a large for-profit company when Mary, who had been working in a med spa, and I'll let her tell her background, kind of came to me and was like, "Hey, you want to do some mobile Botox?" And I'm a nurse as well. So I was like, not really. I have a very different career path and I'm doing different things. But again, like she said, we do everything together. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll certainly help you with this. And I can look at it from certainly a different angle, and we can do that. And then we kind of quickly realized from, a business perspective and all that type of stuff, as well as the newness of the industry and the market and the upcoming market. And I started doing some of those things, looking at we have a big relationship with Allergan on the medical Botox side, amongst everything with AbbVie and some of their product offerings in my job. So started looking at what they were doing and was like, this is interesting. There's a real opportunity here to fill a hole that is needed for both from a business perspective, but then also from our mission, which is really to help medical providers, find a way to get out of mainstream medicine without having to sacrifice all of their profits and all of their skill to, a medical director or a med spa. So that's really how I got involved. But Mary's story kind of comes from that injector and clinical experience side.
Yeah. So I have been in a med spa space now for almost 5 years. And my background's in anesthesia. I'm a CRNA. And when I was pregnant with my first son, I wanted to get out of the OR and went into a med spa full time for over a year, and then did anesthesia. Obviously went back into anesthesia, PRN, and so that's where my experience came from. And then when I got pregnant with my second son, I thought, instead of being in the med spa and where I can inject $5,000 into somebody's face in a matter of an hour, and I make pennies on the dollar for that, I think I can like we can do this ourselves. And so I do everything I asked. Like she said, her, if she wanted to, she could run around Nashville. I was still in Knoxville at the time where I went to graduate school. And yeah, it kind of just over a few months, it kind of went from there. And then it's really important to note that a lot of the model was built with our attorney, who's one of my best friends, and on her couch a couple months in, we came up with kind of the whole thing, and she is our chief legal officer full time now, and one of the other founding members and owners of Smiley Aesthetics with us. So,
wow, that's super cool because I love stories like venture stories or startup stories where you're literally, like you just said, you're on our couch, you guys made what you guys need for the business and you just got it done, and built it up. But I want to talk more about your business model because I find it very interesting. So you help providers get into the industry without like spending a whole bunch of money. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So our model truly is what makes us unique. And again, the mission is there. My background in leadership just really showed me and taught me kind of all the things that I don't want to experience in the company, then culture that I would want to work for. I had a fantastic career with HCA. I always give them the biggest plug. I am who I am because of them. But my experiences, led me through a bunch of leaders and to figure out, what it is that we want to provide and offer to people. So we don't want to make money until the provider makes money, if that makes sense. It is a business, so we are doing a lot of things, but we don't charge like any fees or do any of that stuff month to month. We provide a turnkey solution for aesthetic providers from medical providers, RNs and above, to start their own and operate their own aesthetics business. And we quite literally don't make a dime until they have their clients and have their businesses. So we kind of take on all that risk up front to help them grow for more than just being an injector. I mean, Mary obviously has created an accredited training program that is top notch, and we train people from all over the country who come on with us and some who don't. And that's the starting point. But then we help them also learn the skills that we as medical providers just don't have. I mean, we don't how to start an LLC, how to manage your money, how to prepare for taxes, how to own your business, how to market, how to just do everything, all of those types of things. So we provide all of that along with the EMR, the medical director. We do provide the marketing. So just things that it's very difficult to take on all of that. And then the key to all this is almost all of them, or maybe even 100% of them, already are still working in mainstream medicine in some form or fashion. So we wanted to make sure we had a solution that would allow them to essentially burn it from both ends until their business was ready for them to either commit fully, or maybe they just wanted to make a few dollars extra on the side and they wanted to not work that extra 12-hour shift or whatever it was. So we're able to provide the solution for the wide range of, people who have the entrepreneurial spirit and those that, again, just want to make some extra and use their nursing skill in a different way, or medical skill or whatever.
Wow. That's super, super amazing because I find it that I'm a recruiter myself and I work with a lot of different providers to place them into different companies, but people that want to go on their own, one of the number one things that they ask me is, how can I afford this? Like, how can I make sure that I'm good and I don't go under within 2 months or 3 months? And you guys are providing a long-term solution for them that it's able to quit their job, get into the industry that they want to and start and not have too much risk.
yes. So yeah, it's a huge, I think, and if you look at, some of the industry valuations out there, so many med spas get started and then unfortunately close their doors within 6 months and then even more within a year. So we're really trying to, which I think is kind of what Carla was speaking to. It's just medical providers from physicians to nurses. We don't get business classes. We don't get business school. So it's just our lack of knowledge on being good business, and we make great entrepreneurs for our type A personalities and our attention to detail, but that doesn't mean we still know what we're doing in the beginning. So yeah, we're trying to take down that barrier and help more people stay successful, allow them to have a slower start, which does equate to more success for sure in this industry, not sink themselves, too quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Who are the demographic or who would be eligible to, I guess, enter this program or this actual business?
Sure. So we accept sounds weird. We train RNs or above. So, the RNs, APRNs, PAs, and physicians are welcome under Smiley or welcome in our trainings. I'll go ahead and say we do not train LPNs just because every state has, that I'm aware of, a direct supervision requirement by a physician. So that doesn't work well with our model. So basically anyone with an RN, an active RN license or above, we take in it and we're happy to train. And as Carla mentioned, we train hundreds of providers that do not come on with Smiley. And then just as many that do. So,
and I think it's important to note that another reason we don't train LPNs is not because they don't have the skill sets to potentially, perform aesthetics. It's more that we're also trying to slow down a little bit of the wild, wild west situation we have going on in aesthetics, which is partly due to the grayness of laws or people's misunderstanding of laws and some of the growth that's happening in the country that makes it very difficult to stay on track, state to state, all kinds of things. So by staying RN and above, we feel like we're promoting a environment that is more stable and is only going to elevate the aesthetics industry, which you'll hear us say multiple times through your questions. It's another big part of our mission is to elevate this industry to be compliant and safe. So that's another reason why we stick with that RN and above.
Yeah, for sure. Carla, could you speak or touch on a little bit more when you say like wild, wild west? Because like personally, me just being in the industry, I see things that are just crazy. And you're right, because the legislation is not really up to standard. I think aesthetic medicine is so new. Things are still being formed.
Right.
Everything is still, so it's, there is a little bit of wiggle room. Can you touch on what you experienced or what you've seen?
Yeah, for sure. So you said it, a lot of legislation is antiquated and it's still being applied to the aesthetic industry from a medical or medicine perspective, which there is a place for it, but it's just a bit antiquated when you think about, there's a difference between a Levofed drip and Botox injection in the face. They're just not the same thing. So being governed by the same laws and boards is a little bit, is what's causing some of the issues. That being said, there are, even where we are in the state of Tennessee, something as simple as, we use this example on, another conversation we had, cosmetic microneedling. There was a law that was released in, I believe it was 2020. 2021 that it was, actually April of 2021, that said in Tennessee that estheticians could perform cosmetic microneedling. And that then set off this whole debate or this whole movement of estheticians performing microneedling, but not understanding that cosmetic microneedling is really the interaction of a non-living tissue on the face, and medical grade microneedling interacts with live tissue. So it depths beyond 0.25 or so. And so if you just read that law in and of itself, or Google, gosh, forsake people Googling, and that pops up, oh, great, I'm good. Cool. It says I can do this, and off we go. So that things like that have created this, again, wild, wild west scenario of people doing things that are just quite simply not allowed. Delegation laws are another good example. Well, a physician can delegate it to me. It's like, yes, that's what it says. But then there's another side of things. You then are as an RN have a scope of practice of what can be delegated to you. So it's a two-way street. He can't delegate to a janitor, or, there's got to be, there's a level there that's a two-way street. So there's a lot of confusion about that, or just a lack of probably understanding, and then also a lack of being willing to utilize an attorney and really make sure that you're safe and compliant, which is all the more reason why we brought on as our co-founder and co-owner our chief legal officer, because that's what we recognized in those beginning days, is the wild, wild west nature of aesthetics and how crazy it was, and how I wasn't comfortable, even with my regulatory and compliance background, of navigating us through the laws and the state statutes.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, need to realize that, if someone knocked on your door and you weren't compliant, saying, I don't know, or I didn't know, will get you literally nowhere.
Not the right
It will not protect your license. And, this whole wild, wild west, I don't even like referring it to that, or saying things are gray. There are a few areas in certain states where it's a little gray in your interpretation of the law. does matter as long as it's reasonable. But for the most part, the law is there. It's just a matter of having an expert, particularly in med spas, not just even healthcare, who knows how to read the statutes correctly and then back them up with the Board of Medicine, Board of Nursing, the FDA, all of these things, and know
and apply them to practice.
Yeah, and know when something's going to revert back to the FDA, even though it doesn't specifically say it is. It's just, this is what typically happens, and this is what they're going to look to, and that stuff is really important. It's not as gray as it seems. It's out there. I think people just don't want to pay for an attorney, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you both. Even being an entrepreneur myself, starting my own business, a lawyer is definitely essential just to know what you don't know, right? Like you said, saying I don't know is not going to be an excuse. So do you think you can get those laws somewhere else besides getting a lawyer, or do you think a lawyer is the only way to kind of get in compliance?
Yeah, that's a good question. We just had a very in-depth conversation yesterday, me and our chief legal officer, about this. And we provide some of that guidance because of how difficult and expensive it is to do that. And so it's not overly feasible for every single provider, a nurse who wants to start their business, to have that. That's why we partnered with her, because I was like, man, I can't afford to pay her what we need to really be compliant. Now, that being said, we both agreed, myself and Courtney, that there is a lot of information that is correct and true that can be found, and probably enough to get you started. As long as you know, it's like anything, as long as you know you're in a appropriate website, a government website, or whatever the case is, you can call your board of nursing. If it's a business tax question or any of that type of legal stuff, you can call your county clerk, you can call your state. There are things that you can do, certainly, to find out correct answers to some of the basic things that are critical. And by that, I mean scope of practice questions. That's probably number one. We know we need a charting system. We know we need informed consent. I mean, there are some basics that we know in medicine that if we just kind of follow our common sense, you can certainly get started in a very compliant way. The key is that you turn around and constantly from day one look and say, where are my gaps? Where am I not compliant? And assume you're not fully compliant. And at some point you have to have a contract with your medical director.
That simply needs to go through an attorney.
Yeah,
that's just not. Yeah. There's just no world where because finding medical director statutes and stuff that apply to your state and some of those things, and knowing that they're legit, is just so hard to find.
Yeah. And even the fact that you have to have a contract between you and the medical director, like that's a requirement. That's not written down somewhere perfectly. It's assumed under other laws that really, gosh, if I didn't have an attorney, man, I just have to be really sharp to really find that out. And that's just not in our wheelhouse. And we're just not experts. The same way she doesn't know, the pharmacokinetics of a neurotoxin. Like, cool. That's where we step in. So it's just an appreciation of somebody else's expertise, I think, is the key. But to answer your question and close that loop, I do think, and we agree, that you can get very far in the starting of your business. And you don't have to have an attorney with you every step of the way. There are resources out there that medical providers can go to be successful. But to do it without an attorney, period, is not something. I would argue no. Like, unless you just have some other special expertise, the common medical provider is not going to be able to compliantly start a business in aesthetics without an attorney.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. And I'm glad you gave that advice, because people can now use that and know, hey, this is something that I need to budget for in the beginning, or enter into something that's already done for me, where they already have these written down, and I can learn and gain that insight.
Right.
Now, Mary, I wanted to jump to you quickly. Being a CEO of a business, what are some things that you learned along the way?
Once again, do we have a whole other podcast? So, oh my gosh, with a background in anesthesia, you are your own little CEO of an operating room. And I do go back to that because I have a large network of CRNAs that I help a lot with aesthetics. It's not as many people necessarily at one time, but the high pressure situation of it and all that really translates well into being a CEO or being a leader outside of the OR. but I mean, learning stuff along the way, I've had to pick up, and it's been a really amazing year and a half. And we've gone to some to specific business related stuff. In fact, now 2.5 weeks straight worth of essentially business school for me to learn some of the more technical stuff, I guess, of business as a CEO. And then, in general, what fits us really well is I really am the visionary of the company when it comes to like the aesthetic industry. And I think that comes from because the clinical side, a lot of it is visionary and like where I saw it going and the whole idea of it and stuff. And then, Carla she's a process expert and operating expert. And then her background in some of the more business technical stuff translated well into the financial area. So we have it set up beautifully where I'm able to be this visionary, and then she goes and implements it. And I think when you really dive into what should a CEO role look like, you can't wear all the hats. You can't do it all. I can't manage every process, every detail of the company, especially at this size. So, and even when it was smaller, it didn't work out well for me a year ago. And it's still kind of the same thing today, regardless of the size. I can really look to see where we want to grow. And of course we all have those conversations together, but, and then I can allow Carla to just implement and do what she does best. So we speak a lot to kind of staying in our lanes. And I've read books and watched videos and really dove into learning how to be a CEO. And so much of it speaks to remain a visionary, have people you trust around you who are better at, and then who are better at these other things than you are. Everyone around me, Courtney, Carla, and then our team below us is better almost in their area than we are, that we have them running. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I just to add to that, I think she mentioned something strong. I mean, a lot of nurses and medical providers do start out, obviously as in their own silo, or they're an individual trying to do it all. And when you're managing yourself, that's fine. I think the thing that people often forget is at some point, if you're going to grow, if you're going to open a med spa, if you're going to bring people on, a lot of medical providers don't have leadership experience in managing people. And so Mary has done a good job of, even though she was in the OR, like leadership, my doctorate is in leadership. I mean, there's a whole, world and of theory and things out there that some people may not find value in all that theory. But the truth is we all know that leadership is a big deal. So she mentioned staying in our lanes, and, I don't challenge her on a laser or the way she's her filler or anything clinical or any of that type of stuff. And then in reverse, you respect the strengths of the other person and the implementation and the leadership. And then we learn from each other. So as people grow, if I had to tell them something, you're going to add somebody on, or you're going to start as a partnership. Defining those roles, CEO or otherwise, is critical on the front end, or just allowing yourself to realize your gaps. And then when you add that person on, you pick that person who's going to fill in those gaps.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love that back and forth that you guys are talking about, that balance, because so many times people think, hey, I'm the CEO, I know everything, I'm going to lead this business this way. But really having a group or a collective that's pushing the business forward, I think, everyone should remember that.
For sure. I mean, it's totally, and this is, maybe cheesy. It's all about the team around you. And we were so fortunate to start out as a team, to have two starting out instead of one, which is, you see it plenty often when starting new businesses in aesthetics and med spas. A lot of times it's a husband and wife versus, whatever, two partners that met in the medical field. But there is so much value in the identical part of our two brains working together. And then I did want to say, someone had mentioned to me just the other day about, leadership and then management. And not that Carla is not a great leader, but I think she's an amazing leader. The managing people versus leading, she does it really well, like both. There's a both component to that, I think. And I am definitely a bit more on the leader side and less. I mean, I think I manage our people well. I don't want to sell myself short, but there's something to not every person in leadership is going to lead and manage well, I think. And so I have learned to manage extremely much better from Carla, really. Whereas maybe the leadership stuff was kind of there, but in managing, I think those are two separate words and separate topics. And so I've learned so much from her on how to do that at a larger scale. And so, yeah, it's just, I thought that was a really, I can't remember if I read it or heard it, but it was an interesting kind of delineation between those two words.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now let's jump into Nashville. You guys that's where you started the company. Tell us a little bit about kind of that area. What are consumers asking for the most? How is the aesthetic industry kind of in that area?
Yeah, so it's definitely changed a lot. If anyone's listening to this that was here probably 5 or 10 years ago in the industry, they'd be like, yeah, it's, we've had a lot of people move from California. And I mean, like, enough for me to speak to it. A lot of people moved from Tennessee or from California to Tennessee. Both we kind of started in Nashville and Knoxville and have grown both kind of parallel. So it has really changed. It used to be kind of this area, the Southeast. We are very natural. Consumers want a more natural look. There's not this Hollywood kind of glam component to it, which affects how you inject for sure, and the treatments you bring into your med spa. So that still holds true for Knoxville and Tennessee. But in Nashville, you could really get away with both now. There's definitely a Hollywood, and I say that not negatively or positively, just neutrally, a Hollywood component to Nashville now. The West has moved over to us, to the Southeast. And so I really can't tell you when a client walks in if they're going to want the Hollywood look, the bigger look, the bigger lips, the more dramatic cheeks. It's the kind of, or if they're going to come in and say, I don't want anybody to know that you touched me. It really has gotten a little, a mix of both. And what clients want are so, I couldn't tell you based on, just the area we're in anymore when you're speaking to Nashville specifically. So for the industry here, I really think, we're an injectable heavy med spa. We have several machines now that we love from Aesthetic Management Partner, but they're not super aggressive machines. They just give great results a little bit more slowly over time, a treatment plan of 3 to 6 months instead of I'm going to peel your face off right today. So we are still kind of more on that natural pathway treatment plan. I, as an injector, and that's kind of how I train as well. But I do think in Nashville, you can get away with both, if that makes sense.
That's super interesting to hear because, I've spoken to a lot of, just doing this season alone, I've spoken to a lot of different providers all over the United States. And a lot of people are saying everybody's going towards a natural look and kind of that Hollywood look is kind of done with.
Yes.
And for you to say, kind of 50-50, it's, and I'm based in Miami and it's always going to be 50-50 here, or maybe 75-30. Like people always want the more dramatic look. But it's interesting that in Nashville, it's trending kind of, you don't know.
Yeah, I do think it's trending from, we were already natural being a Southeast thing, much more to definitely more towards the 50-50. But I do agree with what you just said. An industry as a whole, even I say, Hollywood, even that, more dramatic look that I'm referring to. Celebrities are, which unfortunately is what the aesthetic industry is based so heavily on, are obviously moving. I got this all dissolved and I'm totally all natural, whether it's true or not. Come on, sometimes it's obviously not. They're trying to push this more natural thing. So I do think industry as a whole is moving more natural, but Nashville is kind of moving. It's already gotten kind of this 50-50. Or in our med spa, I'm just not sure, which it's going to be when someone comes in, other than if I already know them as a client, of course.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
The Aesthetic Talk Podcast.
Now, I want to move into our first segment, which is red flag or green flag. It's a segment where I give you a topic and you let me know if it's a red flag, which means absolutely not, or green flag, which is a absolute go. All right. You guys ready?
Yep.
All right. Now, when it comes to price shoppers, is that a red flag or green flag?
Green flag. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us a little bit why.
Wait, price shoppers. Oh,
yeah. I think
from a client
perspective.
Oh no, hold on. That's a red.
Say yellow.
That's a red. No, that's a hard red flag. Let me be honest. I took that as a secret shopper for some reason, which is not what you were referring
I think
to.
price shoppers are
A price shopper, someone who's shopping injector based on price. I think is an absolute no. 100% negative. I think there's a level to it for sure.
I'd say we're going to go yellow.
I have a very strong opinion. It's a red. However, I do think there's a level of if you do a little market research, that is always as a consumer acceptable, right? Always. You should always, if you take the first thing that you find and go with it, I would never, whether it's a refrigerator or Botox, I would never suggest that to be the thing. However, if someone that you trust and recommend, or someone that you trust fully, you can see their results, recommend someone to you, they have great reviews, they're just a respected member of the community, whatever those metrics are, then, perhaps you want to pay the price that they're trying to offer. I just think it's a very individual decision. I do think there's a level of if someone's $24 a unit and someone's $14 and maybe their credentials look exactly the same, then of course I would probably go with the $14 a unit provider. But I wish patients would look more into the med spa, the injector, the owner, whoever it is, not based on price, instead based on why are questions not being asked? Like, well, where were you trained? How many trainings have you done? When was the last time you were trained? When, those questions are so important for an industry that is brand new. I mean, it's brand new. It's 20 years into actual, that is brand new in medicine. We're still rolling off of medical providers that are antiquated, quite frankly. And just this is a brand new industry. So I do strongly feel that, both ways, overly priced and a $6, a super low price, raise huge flags. Yes. However, the questions are not, the first question should not be what is the price? It should be what is the provider that's doing it? And can I ask the med spa the deep dive questions of how were they trained? Where were they trained? How many? When was the last time? What products are you using? Where are you getting those from? I mean, those are just the questions I wish we would focus on instead of price.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, she said it there at the end. The first question shouldn't be what is the price?
It's a question, right?
Well, sure. But so price shopping, yeah. That's why it's kind of yellow. It's like if you ask the same 5 questions of a med spa, but one, and they're all the same answers, but one is priced at $12 a unit, one is priced at $18. That's when price shopping might be a little bit more appropriate.
Yeah.
Does that answer that? Is that what the price shopping you were talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And that definitely answer it. I want to ask you both, can you tell us why, looking into the provider and the amount of training that they have is so important?
Right. So, I have strong opinion about this as well. Training aesthetics, we are not trained on it, to be clear for all the listeners. Plastic surgeons are kind of the only ones, and even they are trained in anatomy, facial anatomy and stuff very well. Dermatologists and, oculoplastics, those people know their facial anatomy. But outside of those few niche specialties, we are just not trained. Even anesthesia providers who are around your mouth and your airway and stuff, I was not trained in facial anatomy when it comes to aesthetics, the layers of the skin, where the vessels run through the face, especially above the mouth and, the nose and above. I mean, we're just not trained in that stuff as medical providers. And I think the population thinks that we are, and we're just not. And so training, and then it's like, okay, let's run back this very facial niche of learning anatomy and vessels and the safety stuff, which is what is most important and makes you the best injector. Is that takes more than one training. And then not only that, medicine is a forever dynamic kind of industry. So now you need now I need trainings consistently. And, I do like to put a plug of don't sink your business getting training, because, you could spend tens of thousands of dollars on training. However, being mindful of, as a master injector, especially if you're leading other people, the continuous training and continuous education, I would argue, is more important in aesthetics as a new industry than any other medical industry out there.
And to add on to that, I think for medical providers, if you go into a hospital, there's no one's selling you anything. You're being treated based on your condition, and the nurse or medical provider that's treating you, you very much trust that they, and it is completely true, that they are trained to treat you appropriately and have the skill set to handle, like an ICU nurse or a trauma nurse has a skill set to be there. We take that very seriously. That is well known. And then so that carries over from the consumer side into aesthetics, that they, and sometimes people take advantage of that in marketing and basically, they can play off that and fake it till they make it. Like they know or have been experienced. I mean, we all know marketing is one big ploy. So you just have to be very careful to not fall into, or to not, just assume that because a nurse or a physician is saying they can and know how to do something, this side of it is not the same as the medical side. It's quite different. And it's unfortunate to have to say that, but the fact is it's just true.
And ultimately, and I tell people I train this to be honest, when they're first getting started, credential yourself. And it's really important in our industry of, I've been a registered nurse now for 14 years, and that's great, but it is slightly misleading in the sense that that doesn't translate into 14 years of aesthetic and facial anatomy and knowledge. So I tell people to vet their providers because it'll stimulate the conversation at least. And maybe they don't know the exact questions as non-medical providers to ask, but I think that's easier to teach than not. And so I just think an injector can sell themselves. Let's be honest. We have people out there injecting that are not nurses. They're not medical at all. They're I don't want to say nothing. Yeah. But when it comes to medical, they have no license at all. And we need to educate the public on why that is so unsafe. And they're not getting their products from the right place, because they obviously don't have a medical director most likely, but it's just it's something that's really close to my heart. And you get trolled a lot on the internet when I try to post things about it. And that's fine. I don't even care, because I want to educate the public on it. Not trying to bring anyone down, just trying to keep people safe.
Yeah, and I would agree with that 100%. Just me, working in the industry, third party, I see so many things that people get called for, people do it illegally. And you got to think about it, guys that are getting your facial features done for the first time and just learning about this industry. If something goes wrong, it could be permanent. I'm sure you guys can attest to that. So, if anything with my body, with my face, with my health, I would want to be responsible and go to somebody that's really vetted.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's just, and I say stuff like that, and I hate to say it to clients in a chair or whatever, but it's know what's being injected into your face, into your body, and in particular in your face, because it's your face, and your billboard and stuff. And no matter what we say, looking in the mirror is very important. So take even more pride and more, find out even more precaution. Thank you for what the stuff that's being injected into your face. It's just, you can't take it back once it leaves the syringe, for the most part. So, I just think it's an undereducated topic, and I would love to always put it out there.
Awesome.
The Aesthetic Talk Podcast.
So let's move on to our last segment called Ask the Expert, where we ask you guys, being the expert, questions that viewers have written in about the aesthetic industry. All right?
All right.
Awesome. So Jenna, she has been in the industry for 2 years, and she's looking to learn more about off-label procedures like the nose, under eye, things like that. She thinks she's ready to kind of do off-label. Where would you think she should invest her money in? She has about $10K.
She should definitely invest her money in a private training. So, any trainings with the Allergan and the Galdermas of the world, they are all on label, and what's FDA approved. I would find somebody that does a cadaver course is my number one suggestion. And then vet, just like you would with anything else. I have tons of suggestions for that, from Dr. Sadat to Dr. Codafano to Dr. Swift. There's so many good providers out there that a cadaver course is by far my number one answer. And for a 10K, she probably could get 2 in, and also invaluable.
And to add on to that, I think the main reason is because they offer that advanced, anatomy training that you need in dangerous places like the nose or
not even
or things like that. Right?
Not even that. It's just like an in-depth, peeled back understanding of what's going on several different, cadavers at one time to understand the variants and the variations and stuff. And being able to see at that level promote the safety part of it is just elevated to a way that even a private training with me can't do. A cadaver would be my first step, and then moving on to more clinically private trainings with experienced injectors.
Awesome. Yeah, all good advice. I think that's right on the point. That's the advice I give to providers that reach out to me. Private trainings are the best. You get the most bang for your buck and really can gain a lot from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Let's move to our next question from Alex. Now, Alex has been working in the industry for 5+ years and found himself really good at injecting the nose. He would like to open his own practice just based solely on the nose. Do you think that is limiting, or can Alex really build a big brand off of that?
So, I'll take this one in terms from a business perspective, and then Mary could speak to the actual clinical, what she knows in the industry on the nose. It's never a bad idea to find yourself a niche within a niche and to really hone in on that and be the specialist. A good example is like cool sculpting or body contouring. There are practices that's all they do. And when you ask them, which I have, why do you not just, someone's in a chair, for an hour and a half, you could easily do Botox, fillers, all the things. And they all say it would degrade the specialty that we are, and it could, make it feel like an upsell and all that type of stuff. So I, from a business perspective, think there's a lot of value in going after a very specific population for a very specific reason. And you can build an entire business and be the expert, especially if it's lacking in the field. So that's my business answer. But then as far as clinically, Mary, on the nose, what do you think?
I think my first question would be, where are they located? Because that's I think, liquid rhinoplasties are extremely popular. Once again, more out to the west, maybe down in the Florida area, even in Texas, some of the bigger states up in New York, that some of the bigger aesthetic states. But if you're in a Midwest state and doing solely liquid rhinoplasties, I'm not sure that would be a smart decision, and might be super limiting. And then if you don't, it depends. Are you going to have the Botox in your clinic to make sure that they come in for the liquid and they want to get their touch up? You capitalize on that. Or are you literally solely the only procedure you provide? In my opinion, in this industry as it stands, that would not be a good idea. It's a high ticket item. And I don't know what you make. You as a provider would make a lot of money off it. I just don't know if there's enough client base for that specific of a.
Jonathan, she brings up a point that I'll make on this particular question. Almost impossible to answer without more detail, which is unfortunate. But it's like, hey, man, you've gotten really good at it. So you have a client base. So you have all the befores and afters. You already have credibility. Where are you financially? Can you take the risk? I want to put a plug in for. People ask me all the time, when am I going to be profitable? And I'm like, listen, that is the question of the year. But without knowing so many other factors, it is difficult to answer that question in particular. And that's, why you got two different answers. There can be a lot of value in it from a business perspective to really niche down. But then to her point, what is the market? What is your client base currently? Where are you? There's just a lot of other questions that have to be answered.
Yeah, no, I agree with both. I agree with both 100%. And it really does count. It really does matter about where you're at. And if it's a demand and you can niche it down and you can be successful at it, then
sure,
it potentially could be good.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I think everyone's going to find a lot of value out of this episode and really what you guys got to say. You guys hit on a lot of great points. Any last words for the industry?
We talk about this a lot. We wish this, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this podcast.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's an asshole industry, and it's unfortunate. I love what you're doing. It really speaks to what we're doing, and it's obviously why we're on this podcast. You're just providing information and education to the people of the aesthetic industry, because it's such a secretive, competitive market, and it doesn't need to be. AmSpa put out their industry report, and 7.4 million people got Botox in 2022. There's 356 million people in America. And no, not all those faces want Botox, but dadgum, more than 7.4 million of them do. And not only that, just the industry as a whole. Another statistics to throw out is 4% of the population got dermal filler. I mean, that's 4%. HA dermal filler. It's such a new industry. There are so many faces. I hate hearing people say, well, my area is so saturated, because we thought that initially started out. We have literally tested it and disproven it. We have a lot of providers in Nashville. Their social circles do not even touch. And when you have a few hundred clients as a solo provider, that's really, really good in the med spa industry. So, I just want the competitive part. I get that. It's fine to an extent, but the reaching out to someone and them not answering or requiring them to pay for an answer, or, sometimes we hear, well, you have to come to my training for me to answer any questions. We are really trying to break down that with Smiley Aesthetics. We freely put our information out there. We did start a Patreon that we're trying to put legal stuff on, never legal advice, just legal guidance, business stuff, clinical stuff, full injection videos, because so many people censor their videos, so you can't actually watch them inject. You just, we're just trying to take some of that away and really help people. And so I just want to put a plug in to be nicer to each other, help each other out. They're not going to steal your clients. They're not going to, there's just enough faces for everybody is what we like to say. So we're really big on that. And that's what I want to leave, I think, this conversation with for today.
Nice. I couldn't have said it better. I agree with everything that you just said. Tell everybody your socials and where they can find you.
For sure. So our Smiley Aesthetics, so that's our YouTube, and our Patreon is just our name. I'm at Injector Smiley Mary, and I do a lot of the clinical stuff and everything. And then
I'm at C Smiley Injector, and obviously the business, a lot of business tips, a lot of aesthetic business tips.
And then I do want to say that our attorney is at Court Approved Aesthetics, and she is her focus on her Instagram is starting to become, now that she came on full time with us last month, will be legal tips and stuff as well. So I think Instagram is the best place, and then Patreon and YouTube for sure. And our website is SmileyAesthetics.com. If it has all of our contact too, if you ever forget, if someone forgets that stuff. But we're super open, and we love fielding emails and answering questions, and doing what we can to help. So
awesome. And until next time, bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
The Aesthetic Talk Podcast.